Welcome to MSTV. I am your host, Ms. Maryrose Salubre. Today's topic is going to be so different to the topic that we touched base from the past because it involved bloodshed, rape, invasion, and even the abuse of violation of human rights. For almost 500 years, the country was under Portuguese rule. In 1975, as other Portuguese colonies in Africa, like Angola, Mozambique, and others, they gained their independence from Portugal. East Timor people also had some opportunities. And in November 1975, the independent movement called Fretilin also declared their independence. However, 9 days later, on the 7th of December 1975, the Indonesian army invaded and took over East Timor. And they've been there for more than 24 years. Now, where do we find East Timor? East Timor is the eastern part of Indonesia. It is a neighboring country of Australia and at least 300 miles away from Darwin. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce to you His Excellency, the Consul General of East Timor, who is now living in Sydney, Mr. Luciano Valentim da Conçeicáo. So, welcome to the show, and Consul General, will you please tell us what is your memory before and after the invasion?
Well, I was born in 1972 under Portuguese time, and 3 years later the Indonesian army made fully invasion to my country. Same as many other peoples in that place, most of them were escaped and resisted in the bush against Indonesian military. Many lost their life. At least every family lost one member of their member, and I myself have the same experience. I lost 2 of my parents.
Right.
Were tortured in the hand of Indonesian army.
Right. So how old were you then when this invasion happened?
Well, I was 3 years old.
Yeah.
And invasion was happening, and with other peoples in my community, I spent 4 years in the bush with the independent movements, and after that we were arrested by the Indonesian army, and later massacre was happening to my family, my uncles, aunties, including my mother and my father.
So how old were you then when both of your parents died?
I was 10 years old at the time.
10 years old. Well, that's just shocking. And according to the independent media that year, after the invasion, it was series of human rights violations. Can you say something about that?
Well, if we are looking back to all contemporary history or conflict, East Timor case was very unique because the country was totally isolated by foreigners. Australia, which is our neighbor by the sea, and Indonesia, the invaders, they blockade sea and air, so no news can send to abroad. That's why 10 years after the occupation, according to Amnesty International and Catholic Church, that 200,000 people out of 600,000 were brutally killed by the Indonesian military.
Right. What was the international reaction about the Indonesian invasion and occupation?
Well, from very beginning, few days after the invasion, in United Nations levels, particularly United Nations Security Council, they were unanimously adopted a resolution condemned Indonesian military invasion and occupation and asked immediately for Indonesia to withdraw their army from the territory. But because of political hypocrisy, same time in the United Nations levels, either it's in Security Council or General Assembly, as well as Human Rights Commission at the time, they were criticizing and adopting a resolution condemning Indonesian government, but because of economic link and arms trade, same time they still supporting Indonesia in different ways to continue their occupation and mass killing in the territory.
So aside from the invasion in 1975, there was also a Santa Cruz massacre. Can you please tell us about that?
Well, Santa Cruz massacre was happening 16 years after the invasion. It was November 1991, exactly in the capital, Dili, when young students aged between 12 to 21, they were protesting about Indonesian human rights record because of the presence of few Western journalists, including UN envoy to that place. So suddenly, about 1 hour after the protest, Indonesian army just shoot and kill more than 300 boys and girls. And it was first time that East Timor news came to the international society, particularly Australia, Britain, US, and most Western governments or countries, televisions, were talking about East Timor, and some politicians were really aware of that because of the evidence. So for us, it was first and ever East Timor picture could came to the international eyes that what was happening exactly in the country was real, that Indonesia did and against the civilian.
Yeah, I mean, listening to the history of the killing, aside from being a neighborhood in Australia and East Timor, do you think that Australia contributed something for the pain and cost of the East Timor people?
Well, East Timor, because of geographic position as a neighbor to Australia, we Australian and East Timorese people have a long story of relationship. During Second World War, Japanese army were trying to invade Australia through East Timor territory. We, the people of East Timor, lost 40,000 because of defending Australian army. It was a small group Australian commando stationed in Portuguese Timor, so-called at the time. So 40,000 lives were sacrificing because of defending Australian interests. And in 1975, few months before the invasion, 5 Australian journalists were murdered, killed by the Indonesian army. But again, that because of political hypocrisy in many levels in international law, that most international community condemning Indonesian brutality in East Timor, same as Australia did it in United Nations levels, but according to bilateral relations, Australia did not sacrifice their economic interests with Indonesia. So some of Australian generals or Australian military officers were giving training to Indonesian army here in Australia back to 1970s and 80s, and that's Indonesian forces, after they qualified from the education or formation in Australia, they were sent to East Timor and part of the operation to kill the civilian again in the country.
Wow. Talking about the 5 journalists that got killed during that time, have you visited their families, and is there any message or views about what happened then?
Well, from beginning, I think few years after restoration of independence, my state giving recognition to that 5 Australian journalists. So it was in cooperation with other institutions. We built a monument in respecting that 5 journalists, exactly in the place called Balibo, in the border between West Timor, that part of Indonesia, and East Timor. And while here, of course, I have some contact with some of them, the journalist family, but because of time changing, it's more than 40 years, so the family is also some in Sydney, but some outside of New South Wales.
Yeah. So East Timor is free today. In 2002, your country had a total independence and joined the international community. What is the political system in your country right now?
Well, we adopted democracy, same as Western European, same as Australia and New Zealand and others, democratic value. Our political system is very similar to modern European countries like France, Finland, or Portugal. That it means semi-presidential system. The president with a limit of power and prime minister will come from the majority of the parliament as an executive power. The electoral system we adopted proportional. Today we have 65 members of parliament, and then the vote is same as modern democratic nation system. So we have elections every 5 years for the parliamentarians and also for the presidential one.
Who is the president or prime minister of Indonesia at that time that is responsible for this pain that's been caused from the past?
Well, in 1950s, 60s, 70s, there were many dictator or military regimes or civilian authoritarian around the world.
Yeah.
Like Philippines, you have Marcos. There are many in African nations.
Was it under Suharto's regime?
Then in Indonesia, it was President Suharto.
All right.
10 years before my country was invaded, himself was also killing his own people, between 3 to 4 millions, of his own people. So President Suharto himself was in power for 32 years, and his regime was collapsed in 1998.
Yeah.
And 1 year later, we had an opportunity for referendum or self-determination. Yeah. And it was under United Nations auspices, and majority of people in my country were voted for independence.
Well, talking about the collapse in 1999, I read a little bit about yourself in respect to the newspaper that you ruled out in Europe. Tell us about that. Was it the beginning of Suharto's regime when did you actually hit him with a rolled up newspaper? Please tell us about that.
Well, same as other regimes, because of Suharto as running powerful economics that very much depend on foreign trade and also economics linked with most powerful nations. Our perspective, 15 and 20 years after the occupation or during the occupation, we had an opinion that as long as regime is still there, it's very difficult for us to achieve our independence. The option is that Suharto regime must be collapsed, and it would be an opportunity for us for having our independence. So what I did, it was in eastern part of Germany, a city named Dresden. It was 3 of us from East Timor together with about 200 German students. Right. We were protesting Suharto and his delegation while visiting, state visit to that country and then tour in that city. So suddenly I was confronting with him without plan.
Yes.
And then it was come to my mind that there is an opportunity how could I did something to him. That's why it was newspaper in my hand, so I threw him or beat him in the head with that newspaper.
You actually hit him?
Yes.
Oh my God, you're very brave. Well, anyway, that's well done. So what is your hope as a rep of your nation? I mean, what do you think that is your hope that you can do?
Well, my country is today very peaceful.
Yes.
I would say that my country could be a good example for other countries because all international convention been ratified by my state. Even Australia or United States or many countries, including Philippines, they did not ratify some of international convention. So we give good example for other nations. Today, 195 independent nations, we have all diplomatic relations. In my capital, in Delhi, all of Asian countries and Asia Pacifics, they have a representative, most of them in Delhi, but some were in Jakarta or Singapore or even here in Canberra, Australian capital, are representing to East Timor. My hope is that every nation have their own history, own process on founding the country. So what we were facing, particularly our relation with Indonesia, that was very bad, as well as Australia, is now belong to the history.
Right.
We stand from that history and trying to cooperate with our neighbor, particularly Australia, as well as Indonesia and other Southeast Asian nations.
So, when did you actually realize that you are going to be in a political side?
Well, same as many generation in my age, particularly who were born in 70s and 80s, were directly facing to the Indonesian brutality. So many of that people, like myself, we were dedicated our life for freedom. Right. And that is in my blood, in my body. And then after independence, I still continue my duty, how to take part on the future development of my country through any political instrument, with whatever that I could contribute for peace, prosperity, and good of my own country.
That's really fantastic. And I have noticed that you have your Facebook, the political Facebook, you are very accessible to the other people when they need something. I've never seen so many His Excellency Consul General that would actually go and help their community in respect to that. So what is your message to those people or Timor-Leste people who actually lost their loved ones during the invasion? I mean, like yourself, you lost your parents, both of your parents. What is your message to those people?
Well, after the independence, my state created a reconciliation between East Timorese as well as with Indonesia. So that was a step how we could looking forward for the future. Even the painful is still there, but we have to agree that who have lost their life, we cannot make it alive anymore. So
you just have to live with it.
That belongs to our history, and it's a part of our history. So that's why we have to be very carefully for having a good in terms of teaching our generation in the next future that to be an independent is not given by other nation, but have to be by that nation himself.
All right. So have you looked into running as a prime minister or a president in East Timor in the near future? Are you considering that, or something that you just want to stay as a consul general?
Well, consul general in international relations, it's a position that not very important.
Wow.
But also not considered as not important too.
50-50.
But as a representative of my country, I'm proud that any position my leadership gives me, I'm happy to have it and do my best to achieve what the mission was. As a prime minister or president, I never know about that because I had no dream to become a consul general, but today I'm a consul general with my other colleague of more than 60 consul general here in New South Wales and more than other 70 honorary consul in New South Wales. Thank you.
Well, that's well done. Okay, folks, thank you so much. MSTV, your host, Maryrose Salubre. I would like to thank PIA as our sponsor and TV1 Australia. And thank you so much, His Excellency Luciano Valentim da Conçeicáo. Thank you so much for coming.
You are welcome. Thank you too.
Hello guys, I am your host Jojo Almasora Sebastian, and this is a different type of show at the moment because I am featuring one of my co-hosts, the beautiful, the lady, and I told you guys earlier, the Queen of Queens, Maryrose Salubre.
Wow.
Hello,
Thank you
Maryrose.
so much, Jojo. Good to see you.
Oh, well, good to see you again. Maryrose, I did want to talk to you about, there's so much thing happening in the community, but especially to you. So we wanted to catch up. It's happening so quick, and people are a little bit confused because you were here and then you were there and then you were everywhere. So we want to just catch up and basically talk about what is happening with Maryrose Salubre. Besides the MSTV, what else are you busy about?
That's what you said, I'm everywhere. I think you're very right. There's so many projects ahead that is happening, Jojo, and sometimes we're just like, there's not enough time of the day to think about it. And by the way, thank God that my parents are here, because otherwise my two kids, I don't know what's gonna happen to them. As a single mom, dropping the kids, picking them up from school, in between I go to the court. I mean, if you've seen my Facebook, I'm everywhere. I work for Lee Johnson's as a clerk. And at the same time, we also have our little legal system around us where we can have our own lawyers, barristers, and but we are the front people that will actually do subpoenas and affidavits, you name it. Anyway, that's another side.
But with your other job in
I mean the
real
PIA,
estate.
the PIA. Well, I'm not really hands-on with that, but I'm pretty much the endorser. If you can see, I'm endorsing the PIA, I'm endorsing the Chocolate Day Spa, the Body Balance, Villoni and Blessing.
As I can see, you're pretty much endorsing everyone.
Everything. There are some people as well that's asking me in Facebook, and I forwarded to Marylose. I said to talk to my admin because, there's no time. And aside from that, we have so much events coming up. Like the Mrs. Universe next year is gonna be the worldwide Mrs. Universe.
Oh,
There's
wow.
100 candidates coming in Sydney.
So this would be done in Sydney, the next one, not this year's, but 2022.
Yes, the 2022, there's gonna be 105 different candidates all over the world. And I'm so happy to be hosting this, and of course with Vicky and Mike, the whole team, and of course you, everybody. I think it's going to be fantastic, and it's overwhelming.
Excellent. But looking forward to next year, let's kind of dial back this year. Because I know for a fact that you were just recently crowned again.
Oh, yes.
Can you tell us something about this?
Well, if you noticed that I was the Mrs. Southeast Asia, Mrs. Universe in 2016, and I never give up until I get what I want.
Yeah.
So from there, since COVID strike, and everything is virtual, so I thought to myself, I'm going to give it a go again. Even though as a national director, I asked my the owner of Mrs. Universe if it's okay for me to compete.
Correct.
And so I got into the I'm the Mrs. Universe Australia 2022. And however, I got into the top 5 women of the universe. And then I took home the crown of the Women Supermodel Universe 2021.
Congratulations.
That's my ultimate dream.
Oh, there you go.
To be the supermodel.
That's actually your hard work paying off. So as a supermodel, superwoman,
Supermodel Universe.
Supermodel Universe, what does it entail?
Oh, I think for me as a Supermodel Universe, it takes a lot of hard work, and I want to inspire those women out there, whoever, men's, women's, fruits and flowers, and inspire them to be someone. And if you want this kind of desire, like since from childhood, never give up until you get what you want. And obviously 2021 is my year.
Yes, well, you know, since 2016, it has been your year. Let's be honest with that. But the thing is that with your supermodel woman title, universe, and I felt like you've inspired me to do something as well. Because, you know, we were already out in the community, helping the community in one form or the other. But I was given a bigger platform to do it in pageantry, and it seems like I took a stab of something that I'm new again, because the last time I joined pageantry was 20 years ago. Yet you've inspired me to do so again. But what are your immediate plans after winning this title?
Oh my God, I have so many plans. Where do you want to start?
Well, let's start from the very beginning.
Okay. The plans, we have plans like Sydney's Best Dressed. We're still going to continue with that. We have
the international one?
Yeah, and I think the Australian Golden Sash is also it's a good platform.
Yeah, it is.
It's actually acknowledging all the queens and kings.
And for the hard work that
they've done. Because 5 years ago, looking at this red carpet, the Oscar Award, I could see that this can relate to the beauty queens and kings.
Definitely.
And that's how I implemented it. Like, obviously yourself, you are the host of the year for
2 years.
2 years in a row, which is fantastic. And talking about the Mrs. Universe that they're coming here next year, we are going to do the Golden Sash for the international with hundreds of different candidates. So I think.
How about that's actually a very good plan with the Mrs. Universe 2022 with the Golden Sash Awards, or even the other body awards that you actually supported. What are your future plans besides those ones that we've already laid out?
Okay, my future plans and my ultimate plans.
Yes.
Actually, I'm getting into the human rights. Hopefully, I could get into the United Nations this year as Australian representative to go to United Nations. So human rights is my next step. I know it's going to be the opposite from the beauty queen to the human rights, and that's why I get involved in the court system, the legal system, because it's also good to know that you have some knowledge when it comes to that. And hopefully, my ultimate dream is to get into the politics in Australia.
Well, you know, that's good, because you always need to know as well that our in the pageantry, the platform is so huge because it has a huge following, not only here in Australia but all over the world. So you promoting and you're advocating for human rights is actually pageantries coincide with it. So you can use your platform with the huge audience that you have to educate them in regards of. And I'm happy that you're actually taking the course of action to learn about it and to be informed in order for you to advocate that.
Yeah, You know, there's a lot of discrepancies and hypocrisies at the moment that sometimes you get confused. And I think for me, I want to further that and address that to the public out there, to be able to know what's the rights, you know, whether it's about their tradition. I think it needed to be addressed. And like when it comes to men and women, where women are really not as high as a man. I think for me, I think
So
we're
gender
equally,
equality is
yeah, I
one of the
think
things.
we're equally created by God, and I think no one should even look down on someone else because we're women. I experience it myself, so that's why I want to further. I know it's not really related.
To further your cause.
Yeah, it's not really related to human rights, but I can see. I think this
Well,
is
that's
also
part of.
human.
I think that's part of as a human.
Yeah.
That's part of your right to be able to. And in one side or the
Correct.
other, it's coinciding.
Yes.
But just to sum up everything, Maryrose,
Yeah.
do you have anything to say to the community that you inspire, of what they can do in order to achieve what you've achieved?
Yeah. Well, all I can say is that I also start from nothing, like from the very beginning that I got into the pageantry when I was 16 years old, where my mom doesn't want me to compete because we didn't have the money to pay for the gown. And because I pursued and keep on going, thrive of what I want. And here I am right now, aside from no gowns to have so many gowns. For me, it's not just about the gowns, it's about inspiring others that I think women can use this platform to whatever you desire in the future. It could be something to do with, you want to be a leader of the community, you want to be an actress, you want to be I don't know, a model, or even a politics, as I've mentioned earlier. You can be whoever you want it to be, as long that you have that faith, courage, and believe in yourself.
Oh, thank you so much, Maryrose.
Thank you.
Well, that's it. That's our Miss Superwoman Model Universe 2021, Miss Maryrose Salubre, an inspiring, a role model, a human rights advocator, and a lady and queen of queens. Again, my name is Jojo Almasora Sebastian from MSTV. Thank you so much for watching, and see you soon. Bye.